start talking about our next stuff, okay? We all passed growth and development, alright? The next set of stuff is over reproduction 2, which is talking a lot about genetics, okay? Can anybody tell me what a gene is?
Like a trait they get from your parents?
Yeah, okay. So, these are pieces of DNA that code for specific traits, okay? And you get those traits from your parents. All right? Now, we have different traits, right? You've got your, well, first of all, what carries your genetics? What are the things that actually have your genes on them? They're DNA, but there's 23 pairs of them. Look kind of like X's. Starts with a C. Chromosomes. Okay, these carry all your genes. Okay, and you have 23 pairs. Okay, so 46 total. Right, and you get 23 from mom, 23 from dad. Okay, now, we know that genes can code for specific traits. What are some of those traits? What are some traits that you can have?
Like your height?
Height, yeah, okay, so different traits. Okay, so we got height. What's another one? Eye color. Give me like two more. Freckles. Okay. And one more. Hair color. I assume that's what you were going for?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, does everybody have freckles, or does everybody have eye color or hair color that is all the same?
No.
What are those different versions of genes called? Does anybody know? Starts with an A. Okay, we have these things called alleles. Okay, and alleles are different versions of the same gene. Okay? And so, when we look at, let's go one specific gene. Okay, so the gene we're going to look at is eye color. Okay? There's really only three main alleles, okay? And then there's some that are kind of mixes of the three. But what are the three main alleles in eye color? Blue. Brown. Green. Those are the three main types, okay? So even though this is the same gene, eye color, there are three alleles. Blue, green, brown. Okay? Are there any questions about genes and alleles right now, just in terms of what they are? So obviously there's like 3 different genes for eye color that we talked about. But let's even simplify it, okay? Let's have it to a point where there's only 2 different genes for one trait, okay? And so, the 2 main types of genes for a trait are going to be dominant and recessive. Okay? And so all this means, all right, because you get 1 gene from each parent, right? So you always have 2 genes. Okay? And so if you have a dominant, all right, dominant means only 1 gene is needed to show trait. Recessive, you would need both genes to show trait, okay? And so kind of let's talk about it like this. Dominant traits are usually shown as capital letters. Okay, recessive are lowercase. Okay, so let's say we were looking at a flower, okay? Or how about we even start, let's talk about peas, okay? Like little peas. Now peas, on their skin, there's 2 main things that they can be, okay? They can either be round or they can be like really wrinkled, okay? And so let's go ahead, when we're talking about round versus wrinkled peas. Okay, has anybody got a guess as to which one of those is the dominant one? Round or wrinkled? Corbin?
Round.
Round is dominant, okay? So round is dominant. Okay? Wrinkled is recessive. So what? We only use 1 letter when we're showing these, okay? So if it was, what was our, let's go ahead and use the letter R, okay? So when we're showing a round gene, okay, it's going to be capital R, wrinkled will be lowercase r, okay? Now again, whether you're a plant or a person, anything that reproduces sexually has 1 gene from its mom, 1 gene from its dad. Okay? So you're always going to have 2 of these. Okay? So, what we're going to be talking about here is something's genotype. Okay? So that's an important word to know. Genotype. This is all, or both alleles that control an organism's appearance or genes. Okay? And so what we're going to talk about when it controls an organism's appearance, another name for that is phenotype. Okay? And so phenotype, this is basically just what the genes actually look like. Okay? So, let's go ahead. If we have a round pea, Okay? What can my genotypes be? So what two different alleles can I have that'll make me have a round P? Okay, which is my phenotype. Phenotype is round. What can my genotypes be? You can have two different ones. So we know we need what to be round? Do we need a little r or a big R? Violet.
A big one.
You need at least one big R, okay? So we're going to have at least one big R, right? Now, with dominant, you only need one in order to show that trait, right? So we could have two big R's. You could have a big R and a little r, okay? This isn't going to make it something that's like kind of round, kind of wrinkled. If it has one dominant trait, it is the dominant one, okay? Doesn't become something in the middle. Dominant always outshines the recessive, okay? And if you have a wrinkled P, what is the only genotype we can have? Corbin.
Recessive.
What?
The recessive. The little r.
The little r? How many of them do we need?
2.
You need two, okay? You can't have a wrinkled P without both little r's, all right? And so, what we're going to talk about, there is a name for those three things, okay? You're going to have, when there are two big R's, okay, that genotype, or just two dominant alleles, homozygous dominant. Okay, this means there are two dominant alleles in genotype. Okay? What do you think the two little r's are going to be called? If that top one is homozygous dominant, did you have a guess or were you raising your hand?
Homozygous recessive.
Yep, these would be homozygous recessive. This means genotype as two recessive alleles. Okay? And so the prefix homo just means two of, or the same, okay? It means the same. So the same zygotes, okay? Now when you have two different ones, that is hetero. So these are heterozygous. Okay? Which means it has one of each. Okay? And so even though a homozygous dominant and a heterozygous have different genotypes, right? They have the same phenotype, okay? Because they have at least one big R. That means they're going to be round, okay? So they have different genes, but the same phenotype, okay? Does everybody understand at least well? So, now that we've talked about all of this sort of stuff, your genetics, your alleles, dominant, recessive, heterozygous, homozygous, does there anybody know who the first person to really study this was, to figure out any of this? His name was Gregor Mendel. Okay? Anybody got a guess as to what Gregor Mendel did for a job? Kind of did two things. Okay? He was a monk and he was a gardener.
A monk?
Yep.
Do you know what a monk is?
Not really.
It's like a priest, kind of.
They're just kind of worshipers.
Yeah. And so he took care of like up the garden at the I guess you would call it a church that he was at. Okay, and that was his job, was kind of take care of all that stuff and grow that stuff. Okay. And what Gregor Mendel did is he realized he had two different plants. Okay. He had, well, two different types of peas. Okay, so he used peas. Two different okay, and two different types of peas he used were yellow and round, and green and wrinkled. Okay? And so what he did is he had these two different strains, okay? Both of these were originally true breeding. Both were true breeding. True breeding just means only reproduced using same plants. Okay, so they were never crossed. Okay, none of these were ever crossed. All right, but Gregor Mendel decided to cross the peas. Okay. Anybody got a guess as to what the offspring looked like? Offspring all were. So first of all, let's take a, do you think they were yellow or green?
Yellow.
They were yellow, correct. And what, do you think they were round or they were wrinkled?
Or wrinkled?
Nope. These were round. Okay? So they all ended up looking like this plant. Okay? So what does that mean? What do you think our dominant ones were?
Yellow and round one.
Yeah. Color was yellow. Shape was round. Okay? Recessive is going to be green and wrinkled. Okay? So far, we got a lot of round yellow peas. Okay? So our first generation, these ones, okay, the original plants are P generation. Anybody got a guess as to what that stands for? P for parent. Okay, that's the parent generation. Now, our first set of offspring is our F1 generation. Okay? So now he has all these F1 plants. What do you think he's going to do with the F1 plants? He's going to have them reproduce with the other F1 plants. Okay? So, F1 is crossed with other F1 plants. Okay? And so, what do you think the offspring of everything that's yellow and round is going to look like?
Yellow and round.
Some of them are. Okay? Some are yellow and round. What do you think? That's definitely most of them. Okay? What are some other ones going to look like? Road.
Green and wrinkled.
So some are going to be green and wrinkled.
Green and round.
Some of them are going to be green and round.
And yellow and wrinkled.
And some are going to be yellow and wrinkled. Okay? And some are green and round. Okay, now, how does this work? Okay? Does anybody know? We'll come to the answer in just a minute. Okay? How did that all work out? Okay? How did we figure out that the F1s were going to look like that? Why did it work out that way? Why did the F2 generation look the way that it did? Okay? And to answer that, we're going to use this thing called a Punnett square. Okay? And so, our parent generation was all true breeding, right? And so that means that they only had whatever that specific trait was looking for, okay? So, let's just do one with color right now, okay? What color were our dominant plants?
Yellow.
Yellow, okay? So you know it's going to be capital Y, right? And what color were the recessive plants? Green, okay? So you know those are little y, okay? You always just kind of use you don't make it like a G and a Y. You would just use whatever the dominant one is, okay? And so, right here, you know that you're going to get one of these big Y's from the yellow plant, right? And you know you're going to get one of the little Y's, okay? So, we'll put a big Y, little y, little y. Just like this, okay? Now to figure out what all of our possible genotypes and phenotypes could be, what you're going to do is just fill everything in, okay? So we go down, right? This big Y, so you put a big Y in every box here. Same thing with this one, the big Y goes down. Okay? Now we're going to go over, we'll put a little y in everything. Because the little y's go through. And so, our genotype is 100% what? What is our genotype 100%? No. Big Y, little y, which is heterozygous, okay? 100% that. Okay, which also means it's 100% yellow for the phenotype. Okay, now let's cross our F1s. Okay, F1 cross. So what do all of our F1 plants have a genotype like?
Yellow.
What?
Yellow.
That's the phenotype. What's the genotype like?
The, green.
Big Y, little y. Genotype is the actual genes, phenotype is the way it looks. So we got a big Y, little y, heterozygous. Okay? And so we're going to cross two plants that look like this, right? So we'll draw our box. Okay? Now, what goes above this box? A big Y or a little y?
Big one.
Put a big Y up there, right? Now what about this box?
Big one.
No.
Oh.
Big Y, little y.
Oh.
You use the ones that you're given. Okay? What do we put right here?
Big one.
Big Y. And then down here?
Little one.
Little y. Okay? And so we can see in this box, what are we going to have?
A big one.
A big Y and what else?
Little one.
Big Y, big Y. It's two big Y's there, okay?
Aw.
You go across. Okay? Now right here, we go over. What goes right here?
Little one.
If you go over,
Big Y.
big Y. And then if you go down,
Little one.
little y. Okay? If you go down here,
Big Y.
big Y, and across.
Little Y.
And then if you go across here,
Little
Little
y.
Y.
and if you go down here,
Little y.
little y. Okay? So, our genotype percentages. Okay? What three genotypes do we have?
Big y, little y.
So you've got big Y, little y. What else do you have?
Little y, little y.
Little y, little y. What else do we have?
Big Y. Big Y.
Big Y, big Y. Okay? So this one, your heterozygous one, these are 50% heterozygous, right? 1, 2 out of 4. 50% heterozygous. These are going to be 25% homozygous recessive and 25% homozygous dominant. So that's the genotype percentages. What are the phenotype percentages? So what it actually looks like. Okay, so what percent are yellow and what percent are green? Anybody tell me?
100% yellow.
Really? Are these going to be yellow?
Wait, no. 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 No.
If it's got two little y's, then it'll be what color?
Oh.
Green, right? But if it has one big Y, that makes it automatically yellow. So what is this going to be?
Yellow.
What's this going to be?
Yellow. Yellow. Green.
So 3 out of 4, what's that percentage?
75.
Okay, so 75% yellow, 25% green. Okay? Are there any questions so far? And so we're going to do a worksheet where you guys will work these out, okay? I'm going to give you a worksheet where you're going to practice this. We'll go over one of them together, but I'll wait until the end to kind of show you more advanced one, okay?